When I walk in, every ancestor move. Every cell in my body got an ancient groove. I ain't searching for truth, I embody the proof. You look at me, you see the lineage. Every obstacle shift when I rise in them.
Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to another round of My Patriot Report Live. I'm the bridge connecting the next generation to federal contracting. I am Ratwan Hill. With me, I have the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ambassador of Peace. And if you don't know who he is by now, you might want to ask Anthropic, Mr. Walter Cotton III. Mr. Cotton, how you doing this lovely Friday?
I'm well. Well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, it's Friday, May 15th. No word from Congress. It seems like the president was in China. It seems like maybe he's been making some negotiations that help ease this negotiation with Iran. What are your thoughts on the outcome of that? Because I've been hearing things in the popular media as well about maybe a takeover of Taiwan, and I know that was something in the past that that has been in the ether, that has been in discussion. So, what is your take of that event?
What event?
The event of the president going over to China, having the meeting with the president of China.
I was encouraged by the outcome of the president's trip to Beijing. Surprisingly encouraged, and particularly because of the kinds of things that I heard coming out of the mouth of President Yi. And the idea that was most telling for me was his willingness to support our efforts to create a non-kinetic solution to the problem in Iran, right? His commitment to helping America solve that problem and get the Strait of Hormuz open was huge, because with them being as large a purchaser of oil from Iran as they are a material lever on the economy there. And so it was very, very encouraging to hear some of the things that came out of the Chinese leader's mouth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, economically, the result of that, do you believe that we may sooner than later see that the effects of what happened triculate into our economy, meaning that the oil prices go down, gas prices go down? Or do you think that the damage already has been done and we're still going to incur some pain, but it'd probably be a less of a time frame that we're dealing with?
Well, there isn't a direct cause-effect relationship to the stuff that we see in the media and the outcome that we see on Main Street, my street, or your street. And so the effects of this particular meeting, if you will, is going to create a downrange effect. And so the near-term impact, the near-term tsunami that's going to hit us because of the attack in Iran is still there, right? The misery quotient that we're going to experience as we get the supply chains refitted, as we get the source pumping and things back to normal, the pain that we're going to experience to get back there is very real, and it's in front of us. And so we're going to have to hunker down, right, and go through the economic hit that is going to result, and it's going to cause the misery that we rightly need to experience because of our action. Cause and effect. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to get seduced into believing that there is a immediate outcome from the things that we see in the mainstream media in terms of their ability to give us relief. And the reason that becomes important is because it starts informing us of our individual responsibility and accountability to the kind of conditions and environments that we're experiencing, and we'll stop delegating that responsibility to the media, the government, or any other source once we learn better.
Yes, sir. So we know that the problem's here. We know that it's still going to be here, and that it is already taking an effect. So what we need to do right now is simply just focus on the solution. And to my understanding, you have you're rolling out the solution zone where you're going to be talking about, you know, immediate solutions that communities could be putting in place so they could insulate themselves from this downturn that we expect to face in this economy. Can you talk a little bit about the solution zone?
Yes, and I think you said it correctly. You know, all of these communities that we have are going to be impacted by this increase in the price of oil, restricted flow of commerce, and so all of these communities are not going to recover equally. Those communities that have properly prepared themselves are going to withstand the onslaught better than others. And we've been telling those who have ears to hear and eyes to see for some time that disabled veteran business owners, veterapreneurs, are your best source of jobs creating agents in your community. And so, as opposed to continuing to tell you all about it, I decided that I could show you better than I could tell you. And so what I've done is I've selected two communities in America that happen to be near and dear to my heart. One of the communities is in Florida, where I was born, St. Petersburg to be exact. And the other one is in upstate New York, Syracuse, which is a place that I grew up. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into those communities and we're going to create veteran entrepreneurial or veterapreneur ecosystems that are going to support dynamic jobs creation. And we're going to show you all the roadmap on how you can do that same thing in your communities as we create rising tides in both of these communities.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, with the advent of AI, what type of jobs that are you that you think will be viable in this season? Seeing that how all the white collar jobs are, pretty much in threat of being eliminated because of AI. Is it, are you looking at more creating jobs that won't be affected by AI, like HVAC and like the trades, or?
Well, when you look at what the telegraph or early indicator is out of the federal government, and just look at our economic need, we need to start making things again in this country, right? We need to reshore our manufacturing footprint, and so our hyper focus is going to be on empowering those communities to be manufacturing eco-sensors, right? Manufacturing juggernauts. There are policies and plans that are coming out of this administration to leverage the Defense Production Act. If you don't know what the Defense Production Act is, you should do a little research on it. And our objective is going to be to take those kinds of funds and use them as a part of the capital stack that we will employ towards revitalizing these communities, utilizing our veterapreneurs as the foundation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I know this has been a question that I've been asked before, and I believe we may have spoke on it, but with all the other socioeconomic status being pretty much attacked and, at threats of being eliminated, why do you believe, do you think that veterans or service disabled veterans are completely off the radar, or they're not in the crosshairs?
You mean in terms of having their status disturbed, like the MWBE and the 8A status has been disturbed? What I think the question you're asking me is, are the veterans a safe harbor? The answer is yes. And the reason that those other communities' preference was disturbed is because they violated the Constitution, right? They were either race-based programs that were created to solve racial challenges, or they were gender-based programs that are equally starting to run afoul of constitutional norms. The disabled veteran status is something that is a merit-based status, right? It was bestowed upon those individuals because of a service that they delivered to the country. So it's highly unlikely that that particular preference is going to run afoul of the Constitution, and therefore I don't see a way that that is going to easily be disturbed in the near term. And so if you are a disabled veteran, this is your season to take advantage of a earned benefit that this great nation has just pushed to the highest and least risk position in federal contracting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, speaking of those bills, there's a couple of bills right now that's going through the ether that has an effect on veteran business, small businesses, in different ways. So, of course, we just talked about the discrimination in government contracting act. Then you got HR 2804, which is protecting the small businesses act. Then you got the Contract Out Veterans Act, Veteran Member Business Loan Act, and all these bills have mirror language in the House and Senate. So is it a strong probability that these are bills that have already been thought through, that probably are written in stone?
I can't say that for sure, right? And we are seeing a lot of bills today show up and originate in the House that have an immediate companion bill show up in the Senate. I've seen a lot of bills that have had that treatment today, and I initially saw that phenomena with the two bills that we're promoting, right? The Contract Our Veterans Act, and my hallucination was that this was Congress's effort to ensure that they were able to get those bills across the finish line, because in the past 2 years, the past 2 cycles, they weren't able to get it across. But what I'm starting to believe now is, maybe this is a partisan action that we're seeing, right? Maybe it's the ranking members on the House side of the equation and the Senate side of the equation collaborating to kind of put some optics out there that compel the constituents to believe that something is actually happening when these bills only come to the floor at the discretion of, say, Mike Johnson, right, the Speaker of the House, or they would only come to the floor at the discretion of the chair of the Senate, right? And so I think the answer that I have is we can't count on the fact that there are companion bills on the House and Senate being an indication of favor from the House and Senate, right? What we can do is we can create other indicators that give us a higher level of confidence and greater probability. And so in the example that, we have chosen to take with the bills that we're promoting, right? We know that once a bill gets to a certain level of co-sponsorship, there's a fait accompli in place in terms of it being passed and becoming a law. And we know that co-sponsor number on the House side of the equation is 213. And so if you see a bill that you want to promote and you want to have a greater assurance that it's going to be passed into law during this session of Congress, you've got to go through that extra step of making sure that you've got co-sponsor indication out of the offices that you're working with. If you don't get that co-sponsor indication, what you're going to empower your representatives with is plausible deniability, right? I supported the bill, but we ran out of time, right? The dog ate my homework, right? I mean, all kinds of excuses. And again, if you're a veteran or a disabled veteran, we're encouraging you all to help us employ this demonstration that we just talked about against the two bills that we're promoting. And I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we need to confirm, we need to trust but verify in this season with our elected officials. We need to confirm that they're going to deliver against the promises that they make.
Yes, sir. Now, you mentioned some people, you mentioned positions, you mentioned the Speaker of the House, then you mentioned ranking members. What are those positions, and how are they relevant, or how are they relevant in the Congress? Like what power do they hold, and what's the significance of those positions?
And this is where I think we would do as a nation ourselves a service by having a deep retooling in the area of civics, right? And how our process works. But to answer your question directly, what people don't understand is that the leadership in our House of Representatives, right, in Congress, is determined by the majority. So if the Republicans during an election cycle, acquire the majority position in the House of Representatives and the majority position in the Senate, they get an opportunity to elect the individuals that are going to be the chairmen of the committees that manage the people's business. The party that comes in second get the opportunity to be in the ranking member position. And so if the Democrats win the House in the midterm, they will be able to select the ranking members, and they will be able to select the Speaker of the House. Same thing on the Senate side of the equation. And this becomes important when you start talking about legislation and policy setting, because the Speaker of the House is the one that determines the voting schedule on the floor. So a lot of control. The person that is the chairman of each of the committees decides what the agenda of the committee is going to be. A lot of control. So understanding the significance of ensuring that you've got candidates in office that support your interest, it's critical. It's critical to the kinds of policies. It's critical to the kind of legislation that comes out of our system.
Understood. So now you said that we need to reach out to our Congress to affect the bill. Does that have a positive and a negative, meaning that if we have a bill that say we don't want to get passed, do we equally have the same power to say no, we don't want that, like the government?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I've been trying to awaken America to an idea that I acquired some time ago, and that was the realization of what it means to live in a constitutional republic. Right. I understand that I have the right, right, under the rule of law, under the color of law, to have a conversation with my elected official and tell him, instruct her on how I want her to discharge the people's business, my business, right? And understanding that is significant, because now that empowers me with what I have to do, right? What do I have to do in order to get that street light in my community changed, right? What do I have to do in order to get those potholes in my community changed? All the way up to what do I need to do to get some economic equilibrium in my community? It's a function of me having the ability to be able to go and communicate directly with my political leaders. And we like to focus on the federal level because that's the big kahuna. But in point of fact, all politics are local. And this constitutional republic that we live in not only gives you the ability to reach out and touch your senator
Mm-hmm.
and your House of Representatives, but it also lets you reach out and touch your local council member, right? Your sheriff, who is an elected official, your mayor, who is an elected official. Our constitutional republic, right, that is anchored by a democratic approach to selecting our leaders, gives us a tremendous amount of power that we have to understand. And I would submit that it would benefit everyone who's within the sound of my voice to understand what your rights are under a constitutional republic. They're powerful.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So to my understanding, you're saying that voting for the local officials is just as significant as voting for federal officials and government-wide officials.
Yes, yes, because at the end of the day, there's delegated authority in terms of spending and a lot of instances. And so a lot of the decisions that actually affect your life, that actually affect your quality of life, are made by your local elected officials.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we need to do is we need to stop abdicating our responsibility to other people or political action committees or lobbyists, right? We need to get in the town square. We need to get involved in the process. We need to educate ourselves to the need so that we don't find ourselves taking another set of wooden nickels, right, where we're sitting in situations where our gas price zooms past $5 a gallon and we sit around like we didn't do that. Right? You either were apathetic and you allowed it because you didn't participate in the civic, right, the election process, or you made a selection error, right? You made a casting error, right? You selected the wrong person to represent you. Fortunately, in this constitutional republic, we have remedies for that kind of stuff. We just need to learn our rights under the settled law that we operate under.
Mm-hmm. So the fact of the matter is that if you participated or you didn't participate, that was a result of what's going on in your community, whether you participated or not.
And it is that apathy that we need to speak to as we approach this midterm election.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about the fact that history is traditionally a predictor of the future, and when you look back in history to the dictators and pain points from a political perspective, you see behavior and patterns that are potentially reemerging, right? And I'll use Hitler as an example, right? History tells us that Hitler didn't come to power because there was an active majority that supported him. Hitler came to power because there was an apathetic majority that allowed the vocal minority to rule. And in this particular instance, right, we have cults of personality that are trying to drive our nation in directions that we, the people, don't want our nation to go in, right? If you look at the polls, right, you can see that, generally we don't like the idea of $5 a gallon gas, right? Generally, we have a common position about creating pain in other nations for other people, right? America is a kinder, gentler nation. And so when we have these kinds of actions that are happening in our name on a global scale, and we did not participate in the election process, right? We have only ourselves to blame, right? These three fingers that are pointing back at us are the ones that we need to examine. And so what I'm advocating is that as we go into this midterm election, as opposed to delivering the apathy that may have contributed to the outcome that we're experiencing, why don't we over-index, right? Why don't we see what happens if we over-index by bringing our opinion into the town square, right? And see if we can take the trajectory of these United States and put it back on a path to that place it was of old, right? That beautiful city on a hill, right? That kinder, gentler nation. I think we have the ability to do that if we have the unmitigated gall, dare I say, testicular fortitude to get in the game.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I just wanted to touch on this briefly as I see, we got about 5 minutes. In regards to this other bill, HR 2804, Protecting Our Small Business Act, which is essentially codifying the rule of two. How significant is that in this season, given the disruption of all the other socioeconomic statuses? How significant is that for the small business community? Is it even significant anymore?
Well, that particular bill, HR 2804, was sponsored by Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez, and I'm a true supporter of Congresswoman Velázquez because she's done some great things for me in my career and some programs that I produced there in New York. And so I think that this is a time for us to take this very important attribute in the small business contracting lexicon and make it permanent, right? Give it some teeth. And so I think that this is a critical time for us to equally support the passage of that. I think I'm referring to it as the Rule of Two legislation.
Yeah.
But HR 2804, the Elite Service Disabled Veteran Owned Business Network, which is the VSO I'm connected to, and my organization endorse and support.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now on the 1102 side of the equation, right there, I could imagine that they're like, oh man, what do I do? Is this essentially creating the pathway to where their easy button is just going to be the large prime contractors because everybody else is high risk? Is that what this environment has created, or is that the opportunity for them to say, okay, let me try to find the best service disabled veteran or veteran owned small business because that's really the only other viable small business? How does it affect their small business goals?
I unfortunately believe that our civil servants, right, our 1102, our contracting officers, our program managers are captive right now, right? They are victims of a ill-conceived efficiency notion that has been rushed into a relationship with them. If it wasn't the outgrowth of the Doge effort that, again, an ill-conceived idea that never delivered on the promise. We never got the savings that we expected from that, but we did get the savings that came from the brain drain, right? Some quality civil servants that left the service, right? And as a result of that, we're experiencing some of the problems from it, right? There are tornado warnings, right? Early warnings that aren't going out because the people that were employed in those positions were eliminated because of these efficiency strategies. Don't get me on my soapbox there. What was the question? Because that just
I understand. Yeah, the question was how does these actions affect the contracting officers now? The fact that this other bill about ending discrimination in government contracting, how does that affect the contracting officers right now? Is there only viable pathway to award contracts to the large primes?
I know where I was going with the thought of our civil servants being captive. What we need right now are not these incremental tinkering with this bill or that bill, in my humble opinion. The thing that has put our civil servants in a hurt locker was a wholesale sweeping change, right? That covered a lot of different areas. It wasn't just this one little area. And so trying to combat that wholesale sweeping change with these incremental changes is not the way to approach this situation, in my humble opinion. I think that what we need to do is we need to let the dust settle on these ill-conceived acquisition changes and strategies, and then we need to implement a wholesale reimagination of the Small Business Act. We need to implement a wholesale reimagination of the Small Business Administration, because we've reached kind of that critical inflection point where technology, right, where, you know, moving from the, you know, information age into the knowledge economy, right, is demanding that we look at how we interface with commerce differently. And so I'm suggesting that we throw out the idea of this, you know, incremental tinkering, and we make a wholesale change to the Small Business Act by reauthorizing it. Right? Let's reauthorize let's reauthorize it to meet the needs of the economic conditions, the economic environment that we have today, which may incorporate a new relationship with people that were yesterday our enemies. I mean, who would imagine a positive trading partner relationship with China, right? What would be possible if we changed the way we looked at the middle nation, the middle kingdom, and we had a robust trading relationship with that nation that wasn't predicated on age-old ideas that don't fit this environment? I don't know the answer to that question, but I do know that there are people that are in a generation that's younger than I am, like your generation, that need to explore that, right? They need to ask the question, like, wait a second, maybe some of these antiquated ideas that served our forefathers, maybe we need to look at that anew and unlock some of the latent value that comes from relationship.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Man, I had so many more questions after you started talking about what is the art of the possible with trades with China, if that went through. But guys, that's why you need to come back on Monday so we can continue this conversation, and let's dream up this art of the possible and what a peaceful America looks like. And on that note, guys, have a great weekend. I am Ratwan Hill, and that is the Mr. Walter Cotton III. Until next time, guys.